While the Trump is bragging about America's ban on his Truth Social, the world knows that Iran completely dominated the war. This is the first episode of Raking With Rohaan podcast, and today we will talk how Iran literally smashed US over the past 4 months. I mean, when you look at it, the MOU, the hardware losses, what these trials and America's objectives were, and what they actually got, it is pretty clear who won the war. If we talk about the MOU, anyone who pays attention can see that out of 14 points, Iran rules over 13 of them. That is called domination. For example, look at the point number 1. Immediate permanent end to military operations on all fronts, including Lebanon. That was Iran's condition from day 1. Point number 2. Both sides respect each other's sovereignty, no interference in internal affairs. The war, which was started by US and Israel, now Iran is making clear to them that from next time there should be no interference in the internal affairs of this country. There should be no interference at all. So this point goes to Iran as well. Point number 3. 60 days window to negotiate a final deal. In these 60 days, Iran gets to stall, keep an eye on US. If US is fulfilling all the conditions of the deal, then Iran will proceed towards a final deal. This point to Iran as well. Point number 4. US will end the naval blockade, and US troops will pull back from Iran's proximity within 30 days of the final deal. The blockade, which was imposed by US on April 13th, is now being lifted, and US troops will pull back from the region. This goes to Iran as well. Point number 5. Iran reopens Hormuz on its own timeline, the demise on its own schedule, and future administration of trade goes through Iran-Oman talks. The Strait Iran closed and US couldn't reopened by Iran again, on Iran's terms, is now going forward by Iran and Oman. US doesn't even get a seat at the table for the long-term Hormuz governance that US wanted. Again, Iran. The point 6 just changed the whole game. I mean, this shows the dominance of Iran in the war. At least $300 billion of Reconstruction and Development Fund will be paid by US. Trump has denied this as US government money, claiming it is private regional investors. But MOU says the US will issue all required financial licenses and waivers. Whatever the source is, Iran at least gets a $300 billion, which is a big win because the war, Pentagon asked the Congress for $200 billion. In total, $500 billion are just lost on this war. Point number 7. All sanctions terminated. UN resolutions, IAEA board resolutions, unilateral US sanctions, everything gone. The entire sanctions architecture that the US built over decades is now being dismantled. Now Iran can sell oil freely. Again, this point goes to Iran as well. Point number 8. Iran reaffirms it won't build nukes, and downblending will happen on Iranian soil under Iranian timeline. We can give this point to Iran as this is a restatement of the NPT pledge Iran already made in 1970 and then again in 2015. Iran is literally repeating a 56-year-old promise and getting $300 billion for it. But due to the downblending thing, we will give this one to US. Because basically downblending means that uranium levels will get lower by addition of the natural uranium and the uranium-235 isotope. So yes, let's give this point to US. I'm a physics geek. Point number 9. Maintaining nuclear status, and in exchange US deploys no new forces and no new sanctions. So this is again a restatement that Iran won't build nukes, and in exchange US deploys no new forces, no new sanctions. This point goes to Iran again. Point number 10. Iran sells oil again, before the final deal is achieved, before anything is verified. This one, obviously, to Iran. Point number 11. Frozen assets released. Somewhere between 24 to 25 billion assets are frozen. They'll be released by US. Point number 12. There will be a monitoring mechanism which will monitor the conditions of the MOU. Let's call it neutral, and we will call it a draw. Point number 13. Negotiations begin once point number 1, 4, 5, 10, and 11 are being implemented. Meaning Iran gets the blockade lifted, oil exports waived, and assets unfrozen before the final negotiations even start. So this is Iran. which literally made a superpower bow to its feet. This point again to Iran. Point number 14. Finally endorsed by UNSC resolution. So Security Council will endorse the final deal and will give a stamp that from next time US will not do a misadventure like that again. The final score is 13-1. So can you see how this MOU literally favors Iran and how Iran completely shattered US and Israel in this war? And after this, I don't think so that Trump will win the next elections. Now let's talk about what the US and Israel said they wanted and what they actually got. On 28 Feb, the beginning of the war, Trump's stated war objectives were regime change, destroying Iran's ballistic missiles and missile production capability, eliminating Iran's navy and preventing Iran from acquiring a nuclear weapon. Netanyahu stated Iran's objective was to put an end to the threat from the Ayatollah regime. Hexet said that day one goals were destruction of Iran's missile production capability, navy, and nuclear pursuit. And what they actually got? Trump signs the MOU, missiles are mentioned, proxies are mentioned, regime still standing. Nuclear program frozen in place, not dismantled. This explains how big of a humiliation, how big of a mockery of this war is. How badly Trump just lost the war. Now let's talk about the hardware losses. Aircrafts. At least 16 US aircrafts were shot down or destroyed, which includes 10 Reaper drones, 3 F-15s. No nation has ever destroyed an F-15 but Iran. 1 KC-135 tanker, 5 additional KC-135s damaged, 1 F-35 forced into emergency landing. By April 9, total Reaper drones lost 24. The friendly fire embarrassment. You remember that Kuwait incident? 3 F-15E Strike Eagles were shot down by Kuwait, the air defenses, in a friendly fire incident. The 6 crew members ejected safely into Kuwait. America literally lost its own jets to its own allies' air defenses in a war it started. Then we had 1 THAAD missile defense radar destroyed, worth $485 to $970 million. 1 E-3 AWACS destroyed at Prince Sultan Air Base worth $700 million. A flying command center that can coordinate entire air battles across hundreds of kilometers, destroyed fewer than 24 hours after Hexet announced Iran had been neutralized. U.S. Gerald R. Ford, America's largest aircraft carrier, damaged. Paused airstrikes and sailed towards Crete for repairs. An Iranian frigate, Iris Dina, was sunk by U.S. submarine U.S. Charlotte in Indian Ocean, where the vessel was returning from a multinational naval exercise that required ships to carry no ammunition. The US likely knew this. It sank a defenseless ship. It was first vessel sunk by submarines since the Falklands War and first by American submarines since the World War II. It was an unarmed ship. The financial damage? CSIS estimated US military equipment losses at approximately $3.6 billion. Total US military attrition estimated at $5.14 billion. The Pentagon asked Congress for an additional $200 billion to fund the war on March 19, and now, as we know, that $300 are being paid to Iran again for $500 lost in a war that Trump started, that Trump initiated, for the sake of Israel, for the sake of a foreign country. Then the US human losses, at least 13 to 15 US service members killed, 538 wounded, and these are all confirmed numbers, by the way. On March 13th, all 6 crew members were killed when a US refueling aircraft crashed in western Iraq. On March 27th, an Iranian missile and drone strike on Prince Sultan Air Base in Saudi Arabia damaged several US refueling aircraft and injured at least 15 US soldiers. So at least $510 billion of loss that US had to bear just for initiating this war for the sake of a foreign country like Israel, which is just working on its objectives of making Greater Israel come true. And yeah, that's it. So regardless of what Trump says, this data clearly shows that Iran won the war. US had to bear some very shameful losses of the history This was even worse than Vietnam, in my opinion. And by the way, this was the first time I have spoken in front of people online. So yeah, I would like your opinion as well. Yeah, that's it. This was Raking with Rohaan episode 1. We will meet again soon. Take care, you all.